I'm Paul.
I'm Jim.
And bro,
you got this.
All right, hey, welcome to the Bro You Got This podcast. I'm with my good friend and partner in crime, the man who put Cruz in cruise control, Pastor Jim Cruz. What's up, buddy?
Hey, man. It is great to do a podcast with you.
I know, dude.
We're the same person.
We are the same person.
I even wore a black shirt.
I know, right?
Forgetting that you sometimes wear a black shirt.
Sometimes I wear a black shirt almost all the time. If I change it up. But anyway. So, yeah, this is our podcast.
Our debut.
Our debut. This is how it's going to go. So, we have been talking about this for a long time. We really have.
And we've done a few things together on camera. But this is like the official podcast.
Yeah.
And I love the name.
I do too. I know. It came from you. And I mean, I say it too, like, bro, you got this. But I remember you saying, bro, you got this kind of thing. And there's a whole nother thing.
We'll get into
that later.
In another episode, maybe.
Yeah, in another episode. So anyway.
But I say the word bro.
Yeah.
A lot.
Right.
And it is now trending in our culture, the word bro.
Yeah.
And I remember a few years ago, it was dude.
Yeah, I still say dude.
I know, I do too, but I say bro more.
I know, I am saying that too.
Sometimes I actually have called women bro. I have. I say it so often.
I know, I have done the exact same thing.
Have you ever looked at your wife and said, bro?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, honey.
I mean, yeah, I've done the same thing. Dude, I have done that so many times. It's not even funny. So we met like 3 years ago.
Yes.
And it was like an instant connection. We ended up having dinner together, and we legitimately found out we are the same person.
We are the same person.
What year were you born?
71.
You were born in 71, but I was born in 70, but we're the same age.
Yes.
So we're the same age.
Yep.
When did you become a Christian? What age?
I was a freshman in high school.
Same.
That was my pivotal moment of making a decision to follow Jesus.
There you go.
It took me 5 years to figure that out.
Right, but
that was the moment.
You did it.
Yep.
So it was high school for you.
Yep.
So same. Same thing. I think I was, into my freshman year, into my sophomore year. We also found out, we went to dinner, and we were talking to the waitress, and I said, hey, by the way, for dessert, do you guys have any key lime pie? And you just went, no way. You're like, bro, that's the same thing.
My favorite dessert of all time.
Of all time.
Key lime pie.
You gotta have it.
Yes. And not everybody serves it.
Right. And not everybody, and
the irony of that moment was they were out of it
I know.
night.
It was so disappointing.
But then we just had that connection, like we were meant to be together.
We were meant to be together. We love the same kind of music. Grew up in the 80s.
Yep.
80s kids.
BMX bikes.
By
the way, you guys, Paul still has his in mint condition.
I do.
Big regret. I did not save my bike. Yeah.
Oh, well.
R.I.P. BMX bike.
You know what's crazy is so when I was a kid, I wanted to be able to ride a wheelie the length of the street. There was this kid named Bobby Miller that would ride a wheelie from one end of the street all the way up to the other. And our street basically went like this. It went up a little bit, went down, and then it had this massive hill.
Yeah.
And so it was really challenging. And when I got that bike, I was able to do it.
Nice.
That was like my goal. And so then I was like, you know what? Now that I'm older and, on my YouTube channel, I was like, you know what? I am going to make a video about me going back to my old neighborhood, and I'm going to ride a wheelie the length of the street. That was my goal, and I didn't do it. Anyway, we digress. Yeah. So
maybe we should do an episode where we're both on bikes doing this.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it'd be fun.
Yep.
So, BMX
bikes, rock. We had similarities in as far as like how we jumped into ministry.
Yeah.
You were a youth pastor. I was a youth pastor.
Exactly.
In the church world of the 90s and then the 2000s. And Yeah, it's so wild because we were living the same life, but I was in Bakersfield, California, and you were in Kansas City.
Kansas City, Missouri. Missouri. I was in Missouri, and so were you. Bakersfield is
There might be some Bakersfield people. It is a great community.
It's a great community.
Just terrible, hot, and desert, and the air quality's terrible.
So we went to your son's wedding, and I had never been. He got married in San Jose, and so we were driving back, and we drove through down the 5 closer to Bakersfield, and I was like, "Oh, I get it now."
Well, everyone from our area here knows about that area down there because, or I should say, up there, because they have to drive through, and it is a terrible picture of Bakersfield because you smell dairy farms, like the whole extent of all the signs that say Bakersfield.
You do.
So a lot of people are like, "Oh, that's a smelly town."
It's a smelly town, and then
but it really isn't.
Yeah, and then so we found out another thing. We went to a men's retreat together. We were driving up there, and we stopped at this place called Fish Grill. And I ordered my food. You do it through the kiosk and all that stuff. And we both sat down. We both had street corn.
Yes, one of my favorite dishes.
I know, right?
Again,
elotes.
Elotes and key lime pie.
Exactly. Corn on a stick, all that stuff.
Yes.
We also had another incident where there was an earthquake recently. and
this came up in my talk.
Yeah.
That I was in an awkward, embarrassing place. I didn't want to say it.
Yeah, you didn't say it. And I leaned over to Wendy and I go, he was in the exact same spot I was. We were both in the bathroom.
We were in the bathroom. That was the time of the day where we are taking care of business.
Taking care of business. I thought, man, what an embarrassing spot to die. It was terrible.
And what do you do in that moment?
I know, right?
Because you don't know, is it going to be a 4.7 earthquake, which it was?
Yeah.
Or is it going to be a 7.2, which we all die?
Yeah. Initially, I thought I was just having...
Would we all die at 7.2?
7.2, it would be pretty bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought either one, I was having like some really bad gas, or two, it was an earthquake, and two, it was an earthquake. But like the first initial jolt, I was like, whoa, hey, what was that? And I was like, oh, it's an earthquake.
Was that the elotes from last night?
Exactly. So anyway, oh man, so as we journey, we'll talk about more ways we're the same person. Yep. We really are. I think the thing that's cool about you is you kind of have the same mentality about following Jesus that I do. One, it's every day, and two, that it's practical. And it has to work. It either works or it doesn't every day. It's not just a Sunday experience. Yeah. It's like every day. And so I love that about you and just your heart for that. It's really cool to see. So just so you know, Jim is senior pastor at our church, Atmosphere Church, and started Atmosphere 6 years ago?
6 years ago.
Yeah, you guys just had your birthday.
Yeah, our 6th birthday.
6th birthday.
Never saw church planting in my calling. Never did.
Really?
Never.
Wow. Mm-mm. But you've started two, because you started.
Well, the other one was kind of like a whim, because my father-in-law really was driving that idea of like starting a church in Vegas. And so I was kind of his co-pilot.
Nice.
But yeah, I just thought that was my forever assignment after he had some health issues and he handed the keys over to me. And then Tara and I started leading that community, and it was a beautiful, beautiful community, and thought it was my forever assignment until about 2016. I started feeling that unrest and had no idea that would lead to this call to plant a church in Thousand Oaks, California.
Yeah.
I didn't even know where Thousand Oaks was.
I know, dude. That's crazy.
Nobody told me this is the promised land.
I know. And you say that all the time. You're like, this is the promised land where we live.
Because people that have like lived in the desert all of their lives have like just come to this area and just realize how beautiful it is. But the people that have lived here all of their life, they just kind of take it for granted. So I like to tell people part of our story is we lived in the desert for 40 years and then God called us into the promised land.
Yeah, totally. It is the promised land, you guys. So
beautiful.
So we have some friends back in Missouri that live on a lake, and they hardly go out on the lake. And I'm like, wow, if I lived on the lake, I would be enjoying this all the time. So it's like Thousand Oaks. I think there's a lot of Californians. You start taking things for granted. We all do.
Yep.
We all do that. Eventually we start taking things for granted. So,
and it's more expensive here, but I call it the beauty tax.
The beauty tax. You pay for the sunshine is what I say.
Pay for the sunshine.
Pay for the sunshine. So yeah. Well, when we moved out here, we're coming up on 12 years. In 2025, it'll be 12 years moving out here from Kansas City, chasing this dream of like, with my daughters and their YouTube channel and wanting to be actresses and all that stuff. And I've just been in production all my life. So I was a worship leader for a while, youth pastor for a while, all that stuff. And so coming out here, we didn't know what to expect. We didn't know where God was leading us, any of that stuff. And so
were people freaking out in Kansas City when you guys were telling everybody you're moving to LA?
Yeah. They literally, I had some friends go, your daughters are going to become like these other actresses that, I don't want to mention their names, but there's a bunch of actresses that have, gone crazy. And I was like, well, do you guys not know me and Wendy? Do you not know that I'm going to be involved? We're not going to let that happen. And so it was kind of crazy. People have stereotypes in their heads about what something should be like. They have these preconceived ideas about what the situation is going to be like. But until you go find out for yourself, you don't know. So we just let's just go, let's see what happens. And the coolest thing about being a Christian is that God brings people into your life. So I've told people in the industry, who aren't necessarily Christians, there's just something in the way life works that good people just find each other. Yep. You just start finding each other. And so
the saying I have is like attracts like.
Like attracts like. Indeed, dude, that's great. Yeah. Like attracts like. So when we came to Atmosphere, I was just kind of like, you know what, this part of my life is kind of done. I'm like, I'm still into ministry. I'm still into helping people, living and loving like Jesus in the moment, all that time. And then I met you, and I was like, uh-oh, I'm getting sucked back into the vortex. So we started having all these great conversations, and I was like, man, God, what are you doing? What's the next thing? And it's just really cool the way God brings people into your life. So when he brought you into my life, I was like, okay, I have someone that is exactly like me, that loves to just have fun in ministry, is the same, in front of people, in meetings, when we're just hanging out, just being a normal bro. And so we just had this kindred spirit. I think the thing that kind of solidified this whole thing was when we did you were doing Wednesdays in the Word for a while, which was
every week doing an online Bible study.
Yeah. We got on there, and our wives, after we were done, were like, you guys should do a podcast together. It was super funny. It was really fun and entertaining. So
the rabbit trails. I think that episode we got into Smokey and the Bandit.
We did.
Which then we found out we had another thing in common. We both love all of those. Was it a trilogy? Were there 3 of them?
There was 3 of them.
Yeah, I thought so.
Watched all of them.
Yeah.
The last one was disappointing. Yeah. Just But we also love a movie, cult classic, Strange Brew.
Yeah, that's right.
Take Off, eh?
And I have not met a lot of people that know that movie.
Yeah.
And you were like, oh yeah, big fan.
Watched it all the time. I mean, there was a Christmas where we went to Florida for Christmas. That was the year it came out. And my uncle rented it for us, me and my cousins. And we watched that thing over and over and over again. We were saying, take off, hey man, want a jelly donut? I'd kiss you if I didn't have puke breath. All of those things.
Take off, you hoser.
Take off, hoser. No way. So anyway, wow, we digress.
Yeah, Doug and Bob McKenzie.
Bob McKenzie. Yeah. Great times, dude. Great times. Oh, man. So the whole podcast is, bro, you got this. And so I think you've seen a need for just cultivating relationships with men. Just share your heart about that if you can.
I think it's cool because, I'm sure there's going to be more than just men watching this, but primarily, here we're 2 bros.
Yeah.
Who have some miles now on the odometer.
Just a few.
Just a few. We've got some experiences under our belt, and there's younger bros that are figuring life out. I know that our kids are hitting that marriage marker, and they're, getting into a new stage of their life. And it's kind of fun to be able to see like couples, in their 20s or men as young adult men, and they're like becoming, full on adults, and you're just like, I've been there, son. And to be able to speak as like the village elder now, bro, can you believe that?
I know, right,
How did this
dude? How did
happen?
that
How did we become the older guys, not old guys, the older guys
older
in the
guys.
room? Yeah. The
seasoned.
seasoned men. So I look at it, Paul, that there has been so many great men of God before us. And I think in the generation before us, they did such a good job of articulating the Bible and like teaching the Bible. And I was raised up and mentored by my father-in-law, who was a part of the Jesus Revolution movement.
Yeah. Very
Very big out here in California, the Calvary Chapel movements, verse by verse expository teaching through the Bible. Great. And I'm not minimizing the importance of like learning the Bible and going verse by verse. But what I saw, bro, is we had a bunch of people that were learners of the Bible, but not livers of the Bible.
Yeah.
And I saw this when I was still helping on staff at our Bakersfield church. And my father-in-law has always done a great job of really highlighting, like, the Bible was given to us to live it out. And so I, was mentored, and my spiritual formation was really, that was a core value. It was like, you take this Bible and you practice it. You put it into practice somehow. So when I went to Vegas, did the same thing. When I came here, did the same thing. And for the men, what I've seen is when men are not engaging with their faith, when they're not actively, quote unquote, putting it into practice, bro, that's where guys just kind of go like off the rails. They find their life going into directions, leaving their spouses, getting into addiction issues, really kind of sabotaging the plans and purposes that God has for their life, especially like dudes our age, bro.
Yeah.
It's like, it's so frustrating because I see the devil, like the enemy of this world, just approaching guys that have been married 20 to 30 years and they're leaving their spouses. And I'm like, what?
What a waste.
I know. And I'm talking about this. We have a men's gathering tonight, so I'm talking about this a little bit. It's like, in the Bible, it's the sins of omission versus the sins of commission. And I think the church has done a really good job of like preaching on the sins of commission. It's like, stealing, lying, all the things that like you shouldn't do. I think the church has probably even highlighted it more than it should be. But then you have the sins of omission, which are the things that God is calling us to do, but we don't do it.
Right.
This is like, when Jesus gives the story of the Good Samaritan that we call the Good Samaritan, where the dudes are refusing to walk across the street to help this guy that's like all beaten up. And it's like, I think, like, as we talk about our bros, like if we can get the bros activated in their faith, not only will God be glorified in their life, but the dudes, the bros, will be most satisfied in theirs.
Exactly.
Because dissatisfaction is really the ingredient that kind of leads us into this place of apathy and just why bother? Why do this?
You just check out.
Yeah, just check out.
Yeah, I've found that, like, in my life, I don't know how it's been for you, but another way that we are the same is my father-in-law was my mentor. So he was
I remember this.
He's a great theologian.
Yeah.
Pastored churches in Mexico, started 5 churches in Mexico.
Wow.
I mean, he's just like this crazy, amazing influence in my life. And then I've had so...
Isn't it wild, dude, that, not to interrupt you,
Yeah.
but I guess I just did.
No, you're fine, dude. Totally
But
fine.
it's like our spouses are our pastors' kids.
Right.
PKs.
Also, our daughters got married on the same day, 27th.
Oh my gosh, dude. This
Isn't that crazy?
I keep forgetting all these like little nuances.
I know, it came
bro.
up right in the middle.
Wild.
So anyway, my father-in-law was a very big influence in my life as well. But I totally 100% agree with you. It comes down to like, for me personally, what I've experienced in my life and my spiritual walk is like when I get tired, when I get really exhausted, that's when I'm the weakest. That's when I'm like, okay, I got to take some rest. I start getting hit. Like the devil starts coming to me and going, hey bro, you're worthless. This, and this, you should work harder. All of those things start coming into my mind. And fortunately for me, and I think you've had this too, is I've had mentors in my life just kind of walk up and say, what are you doing? Stop. Slow down. You know, how are you taking care of yourself? How are you really, really doing? Like really getting to know me. And I can go back, and I'm sure you can too. There's just like men in my life who've just like lived it day in, day out, and you model your life after them, but they also, you give them permission to speak truth into your life. And I think for me, it was like having men just say, what are you doing every day? What are you doing every day for Jesus, for God? What's your mission? Because it just doesn't matter. I mean, Sundays are great. Don't get me wrong. You should be going to church. It's important to be a part of a community, but it's what you do from Monday to Saturday that matters most. That's your true act of worship. It's like when no one else is around.
That's right.
Are you living the life of Jesus in the little things? Like, are you being kind to someone?
Yep.
You know, are you being generous in those moments? And so that's exactly what I hear you saying, that there's just a lot of guys that just don't necessarily think about living it out every day, that we are called to do this every day. And there's like strength in admitting that you're in need of God, the weakness side of things. I need you, God, to help me see the world the way you see the world, not the way I want to see it. Because the way I want to see it is selfish. Like I want things in my life. I want all this stuff, and I have this natural inclination to want more stuff. God, take that from me. I want your stuff, not my stuff. I want your stuff filling my life, filling my heart, you know, and
that's how you become more satisfied with life.
Exactly.
Because the stuff that we want isn't necessarily going to satisfy us. It's fun.
Oh, it's fun. Yeah,
I wanted a Bronco for a long time. I got one.
The Broco.
Hey, Tara and I were talking about this. Like, you know, you get the buyer's regret, or you get something and then you're just like, you know, and I've had that, you know, for other things, but I have not had that for my Bronco, bro.
Dude, you know what the secret to get over buyer's remorse with a car? Go wash it.
Oh.
Like, go wash it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's like, okay, when you're washing a car, you start noticing all the little details. You're like, oh, this is so cool. And then you stand back and you look at it and you go, look what I did. I cleaned my car.
I literally do that. I hand wash my own car, and I think that it helps you appreciate it more.
There is something about, well, okay, not to be all scriptural or anything, or you know, make a biblical point, but will you get to know a car better when you're like washing it and stuff and you're cleaning it? And isn't that kind of the way God is? He kind of like washes us, cleans us, gets to know us. I mean, he knows us obviously, but you starts really seeing us for who we are.
You know how he washes us is through the word.
Right.
Washed by the water of the word. It says
water
in
of the word.
Yes.
That's right. It's so cool. But anyway, I just feel like, you know, our journey and the way that we've been mentored in our lives is so crucial. It's so crucial. I think one of the things that I have never asked you, what has been your verse in the Bible that's really like you've hung on to? You're like, okay, this is the one verse that like really changed my life. Or maybe it's multiple verses. I mean, there's multiple verses obviously, but what was one that just really like stuck early on? Yeah. That you kind of built your life around?
It's two. I have one Old Testament, one New Testament.
Okay.
Proverbs always rocks me.
Oh, dude.
So I believe it's in Proverbs 19, but there's a scripture that really helped clarify calling for me. And it says, many are the plans in a man's heart, but it's the Lord's purpose that prevails.
That's good.
And that one really helped become a clear path for me to like pursue what my dream was, which was to be not a pastor, a veterinarian. So I was over at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and that was my pursuit. I actually had another pastor when I was like 17, and I felt like I had this lady that gave me a word of knowledge, like, you're going to be an evangelist. So I was like, what do I do with that? Do I go to a Bible college? And this dude just looked at me, this pastor guy, and he said, you go and do your plans. He says, the jury's still out on whether that lady is hearing from God. But if you're really supposed to be an evangelist, nothing will be able to stop that from happening if God is really behind that. And I just like, oh, that makes sense. So I just pursued my goal to be a veterinarian. Yeah. And then I fell madly in love with Jesus my second year of college. First year of college, lukewarm believer. Just stepped back into a lot of stuff I shouldn't have. Came out of that, started dating who is now my wife, and just really got my act together for Jesus. And then that's when I really started seeing God develop me. My spiritual formation like excelled exponentially that when I was 20 years old. So all that to say, I did become an evangelist.
Yes.
I did become a pastor, and I didn't go through, I guess, the formulaic way of becoming a pastor is like go to Bible college, go to seminary, and you go and take on an internship. I didn't do it that way. So I'm like a homegrown pastor, as I like to say. And my father-in-law was like my Mr. Miyagi. And so I learned ministry like by waxing on, waxing off, another great 80s flick.
Exactly.
And so I became a pastor, Karate Kid style, and it's just amazing. But many are the plans in a man's heart, but it's the Lord's purpose that prevails. So if God has a calling on your life, the calling will find you. You don't have to go and hunt it down. You just get madly in love with God, and that will happen. Second verse, different than the first. Second verse, same as the first.
This time in country style. Sorry.
Yes.
Couldn't be worse. All right. Sorry. There's an 80s.
Matthew 6:33. Okay. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and everything will be given to you. That's a paraphrased edition, but that has become a mantra for me. If I seek his kingdom first, everything else will be taken care of. So I have to put his kingdom first. So I live by this, Paul. This is the I call it the principle of kingdom first. So I put the kingdom first in my time, kingdom first in my money, kingdom first in my relationships, kingdom first in my purpose. So I've lived this way now for 30 years, and it works, bro.
It does.
Like God has completely taken care of every need that Tara and I have ever had. I was just sitting in our living room last night in this beautiful house that God supernaturally gave us through a couple in the church. And we're just looking at the sunset. And I said, Tara, God has literally taken care of every need that we have.
Yeah.
It's pretty fantastic. Why? Because we put his kingdom first.
Exactly. Amen to that.
So those are my two. What about you?
I don't have, there's multiple, but the one that like really stuck was James chapter 1, verses 1-7, I believe. But consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know the testing of your faith develops perseverance, and perseverance must finish its work, so you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. But if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives freely without finding fault. And I was like, I read that. My youth pastor told me, dude, you need to find a verse and just hang on to it. When you find it, just hang on to that for the rest of your life. And I was like, okay. When you're 16, you don't really think about it too much. That is like a very, very powerful thing. And that verse, man, we've faced all kinds of trials and tribulations. And every time I ask God for wisdom, he usually changes me first, changes my heart, and puts, like what you're talking about, the kingdom, it focuses you back on the kingdom, focuses you on what really, really matters. And, just living in that, walking by his wisdom and just asking for it, and just knowing that he will guide you if you let him. He will guide you if you ask, if you're open, if you're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to go through all this stuff. And I was going through a lot of things when I was first became a Christian. My parents were not happy that I was a Christian. They were not at all. They thought I joined a cult, all kinds of stuff. And so I was just dealing with that. And when my youth pastor said, hey, you need to find yourself a verse, I found this verse. It was like, wow, this is me. I see myself in this. I'm going to press on. I'm going to keep going, even though there's trials and tribulations going on in my life, because I know that's going to make me more mature. And along the way, if I ask God for wisdom, he'll give it to me. Are you kidding me? The God of the universe wants to give me wisdom. And I just put that into practice, bro. And I'm telling you, even this week, I've had used it. That verse has just been the thing that I've hung so many things in my life on, just for everyday practical, like, hey, scripture works every day. God's word works every day. Man, well, we got a lot to talk about, dude.
I know. I look forward to so many episodes in the future, from 70s to 80s trivia, and to
raising our kids,
to being the coolest dads on the planet.
Exactly, right? And the best looking.
Yes. Being married for 3 decades. Like all of that.
It's crazy.
It's going to be good. It's going to be good podcasts in the future.
And more ways that we are the same person.
Yeah. Well, it's been a great episode, man.
I think so. Episode 1 in the book.
In the book.
Well, hey, if you like Bro, You Got This, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on all of our social media. We've put all the links and stuff in the description below. Make sure you share the podcast to tons of people. We're just trying to just help people, so.
And tell bros they got this.
Yeah. Tell Bro You Got This podcast.